Hey guys, Mustached Tom here to review the movie Until Dawn. Now, I have not seen any trailers for this, and the only reason I even knew this movie came out is that I saw other people reviewing it. So in terms of this movie being promoted, it did a terrible job, I would guess, overall. But for those not in the know, this is based on the video game, which I have also not played. But I have glanced through the story of watching other people's Let's Plays of said video game, so I at least know sort of the basic ideas of Until Dawn. But I've heard pretty negative overall things about the game, but at least initially positive things, and then more and more criticisms as more games came out, and so on and so forth. So, I'm not too surprised that a movie of this game would be coming out. With the video game craze, being a bit of a roller coaster. It started out primarily bad, and then eventually some decent video game movies started coming out, and then they started getting good. And then, you have your movies like Mario, which look like like a fantastic piece of it looks really good, but the story is kind of meh. And then you have a story like Sonic, which is that's not as close as the games, but its stories are, I would argue, fairly better overall. And now Sonic is on its 4th movie, so I think that proves its own worth. So here we are with Until Dawn. And it's also in the horror genre, which is something, if you've been a part of my channel, you've probably noted that I have definitely cataloged a long list of horror movies, and this just happens to be a video game horror movie. Now, what makes Until Dawn interesting is that a lot of that game does come down to choice. Now, one of the criticisms that cropped up from that, I believe, at the time were that if you chose a certain path, that, X character would automatically die, or something along those lines. And in other instances, you would be given a chance to survive through prompting to keep a certain other character alive, depending, again, based off of choices. So I'm a fan of the latter, obviously, and not so much a fan of the former, that being that, just choosing between two things automatically means you die. I think that is extremely unfair. It's actually one of the complaints I have against Baldur's Gate 3, actually. For when I start releasing those, but you can see things on Twitch might still be there, may not be, but that is coming to YouTube eventually. So I definitely have a lot of criticisms towards Baldur's Gate 3, but that's for a later point in time. As for Until Dawn, the movie, we shall see how this all pans out, as objectively as possible. So the movie begins with some woman who we're following, and a masked individual kills said lady pretty promptly. Now, what I will say, at least from what I can remember from the video game, is that this masked clown guy that we see is among because Until Dawn, the video game, has a variety of little things going down, though the big main one does appear to be Wendigos. Though, again, there do seem to appear to be other minor things going on, like this masked clown guy, which is a part of the choices you can make at the start of the video game. And a part of me feels like the start of this movie actually should have mirrored something equivalent to that. Have the character, the starting character we see at a facility like that, being asked questions about what, we're more afraid of. And maybe, you could shift it slightly so it seems a little bit more casual or something to elicit some sort of like, oh, this isn't like a professional thing. It's just like a, more casual aspect. I don't know. Something to make the latter parts of the explanation of what's going on and make a bit more connective tissued sense from where we were. But we'll get to that. Anyway, we cut to a group of 5 or 4 young, not really too bright characters. So we have that issue immediately within this horror movie, is that the characters we do follow aren't that interesting. And this has been a consistent problem with a lot of horror movies, especially in the, in the sense of the characters you're following in, like, your slasher movies and so on and so forth. And there is always that sense, at least there have been more movies in my eyes that have strayed away from focusing on those characters and really making them stand out and making sure that you at least know who they are. Because, quite frankly, I did not catch most of their names through a good chunk of the movie, and then I had to scobble to remember, because the two guys in the group looked kind of similar to each other, honestly. Not related, as far as I could tell. But, like, I couldn't tell them apart as far as characters, and that is the issue, is that, I could barely tell who these characters were. It makes it that much harder to get enthralled in any journey, and that is the immediate failure of this movie moving forward. When you don't narrate your stakes through the characters, you miss out on the opportunity for your audience to inject themselves into the into the characters. That's sort of the crux of what makes a good horror character versus a bad horror character. Again, there is a reason I keep saying that Glenn's death from The Walking Dead is one of the best. It's because before that happens, we have seasons worth of material where we see what type of character Glenn is. You see his selfless actions. You see he's a little bit careless. You see how caring he is. You see him, trying to build up that relationship with Maggie in season 2 and so on. And again, just how much he is that, the go-forward our attitude type of character in this regard. But that is it. That is the crux of why that attachment matters. Anywho, we follow one of the characters named Clover, the one we saw at the beginning, that's her sister, enters the shop and begins to ask if she has seen the missing sister. The store owner claims that he's been cited this beforehand and tells them where not to go. So of course our group immediately goes there. What is strange is when they arrive, because it begins to rain heavily, is that they reach a certain point and the rain immediately stops. As they look towards where they came from, they can see, like, past a certain point, it actually still is raining. So she initially heads off into the rain, thinking she sees or hears her sister. And Max, among the two guys, I couldn't tell them apart, because I think in my notes I mixed the two guys up all the time. Sees, I think he's primarily following Clover through the majority. I think that's him, or it could be the other one, I don't know. So we see another character named Naomi sign her name in to the sign-in sheet. And we begin to see that the dial, something that is prominently featured in the house, is now turned over, and Melania, I think her name is, and that's what I heard, that's the name I heard, so I could be wrong, notes that has now happened. So they hear that the car had been moved, in that they try to reach for the phone immediately, it does not work. And then we get our immediate stupid decisions where Max, I believe it is, splits off from, I believe this character's name is Mary? And thus, again, just splitting up the group. We see that as she is staying behind, this masked killer, the clown guy we saw earlier, indeed takes upon this opportunity, killing Max. The other three take note of this and hide in a room singularly. So the other guy, whose name I didn't catch at this point, tries to hit the clown with a sneak attack, but it does nothing. Thus, he is then secondly killed with very little time separating between the two. The clown makes quick work of the third victim, which is Mary, and smashes her head down. One of the remaining people tries to stab him, and it still does very much of nothing. So when the masked killer kills the final person, before the time runs out on the clock, everything resets to right when they arrived at the hotel, and there was that split among the group. So now we get a bit of a Groundhog Day, and perhaps alluding to how they try to connect it to the video game, in the sense of when you die you can reload your saves and all that stuff. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but mayhaps that was what they were trying to sell as the idea, or the promise of this movie. However, the one thing that this does potentially do is, if there were stakes beforehand, it definitely lowers them, unfortunately. It is a side effect. It means that, and again, in Until Dawn, one of the things that is pushed throughout the game is that, yes, technically speaking, you can get everyone to survive, or you can get everyone killed. depending on, again, on which choices you make, and again, how fair those certain choices are, is a little bit of the criticism, is that there is no, like, again, just choosing a path is a wrong thing to do. And bizarrely, this follows in the movie, too. Now, granted, they acted really stupidly with the clown guy, and they all got killed. So let's see, they reset, and immediately, hold on, let me, so the two that are outside rush back in because they remember at least that they died. And now they have been added to the missing pile that they've spotted earlier in the movie. The group see that one of the doors is opening up on its own and slams on its own. They proceed to try to block it. Megan abruptly gets taken over by some spiritual entity and begins to point to all the people who have vanished beforehand, and we get to hear how they had been dealing with the outcomes that they have been dealt. And one of them begins to hear, Clover hears her own sister outside, and despite being warned not to head outside. So, she goes out there anyway, and is dragged into a new house, and is pulled in. Again, while the others remain arguing. The other guy whose name I just added here is named Abe, so Abe and Max are like yelling at each other here about what to do. While Clover is being bound to this chair, as this old woman gives her this clue that's about like, oh, you know, you have to survive until dawn, as the movie literally suggests, essentially. But, of course, they see as Max and one of the other ladies whose name I don't remember which one it was, not Megan, but this other woman that was with them, see this giant thing and then proceed to get killed by something entirely different. And kill the other person in the car as well, which leads them to their third reset. Cut to them in all of them in the restroom, thinking about you know, how things have been playing out. One of them drinks water, and then they all partake in water, and then they all combust and explode, one after another. And yeah, that is just the entire sequence. Like, they don't really have a lot of time. And that one, out of the most of all of them, seems like the most unfair of, like, they again, the whole connecting it back to that whole player choice, that seems like something that would have been in the video game, to be like, oh, you just happen to choose wrong, so now all your players are just gonna explode. Oh, okay. Like, there's no after effect of, like, preventing it or any of that. Nope, they just all explode. So, before the final person explodes, that being Clover, says that standing still is not a good idea either. So, during Reset 4, they begin to do research. And through that, they go on and find some videos, and finally enter the Wendigo, which is the primary, you know, among the creepy crawlies out in the game, is finally here in the movie now. and they get the context that this Dr. Hill guy has the answers. Out of desperation, Nina, I think that was the other woman, whose name eluded me, not Megan, but the other one, who stabs Max down, literally, as Clover heads out to go meet with this doctor guy to negotiate some sort of deal or whatever. But out she heads, and the Wendigo is out there already. And she's dragged out there again. And of course, that ends poorly as conceivably can get, as we then get our first flashback where it's her and the sister about the, how they've been dealing with whatever. Cut to night, technically, from where we're seeing it, it's reset 5, but apparently it's actually 13. She is now noted the one who initially signed her name on the thing, that they have actually been doing that many times now. And the guy, or one of the two, I forgot which one, pulls out his camera phone and shows through some of their previous attempts. I guess they stored and saved through the reset. I guess that can work. I don't know. Don't ask me. But yeah, so they watch how they have failed in other previous attempts as they're getting ready to get encountered from the outside. So now, with this being their 13th night, and they see that nobody else has made it past 13, they assume that this is now their final, this is their final quote-unquote save, or this is their final chance to essentially get out. So they put all in their eggs in the basket of escaping with every intent. But Clover wants to deal with Hill still, despite all of this, and Megan has been locked away. We see her leave during this beginning of the attempt, saying that she will follow Hill to see if she can work something out, as they have just gone tired of being in this restarted state of affairs. But we see Clover use the water from the pipeline to fill his cup with that explodey water that we saw from attempts ago, and make sure that he was turned around when he offers himself a drink, that being, and proceeds to explode. She grabs the keys, gets to where Megan has been stored away with a Wendigo on the opposing side, and she lets her out, while the other three are escaping a group of Wendigos. And this is a rare movie where, akin to the true ending of the video game, all the characters survive. And that is Until Dawn, the movie. So while I can see the attempts to pull from the video game, clearly that wasn't enough. Now, I want to point something out. I mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog, and there's a reason I am bringing that back up now. The reason Sonic is such a fascinating movie to me, or now a franchise at this point, is that, again, it isn't a faithful adaptation. I have made that crystal clear throughout its entire trilogy, because Sonic's whole adventure does not take place in the human world, with the exception of a completely separate show called Sonic X. With that exception in mind, Sonic, outside of that, again, is not a faithful adaptation, but it's still a good movie. And why? It's because they make Sonic a character. They let us know what makes Sonic tick, what makes Sonic want to stay, and we see how he's trying to, especially in the first movie, how he's trying to circumvent using his speed to quickly get out. He has already made it abundantly clear as the movie is progressing, as that he less and less wants to leave and more wants to stall for time. Kind of, we're just gonna run around and not go run to the main place right away. Whoa, things of that nature. These are all attempts because you can immediately see that is telling the audience that Sonic doesn't want to leave. And it tells us a lot about his character, about how alone he is or was growing up and all of this. That bulk of information is missing from a movie like this. We needed, a set of scenes or a scene where we actually see the characters actually exploring what they're like, what are their personalities, their insecurities, what makes them tick, what type of characters are they, because I have no clue what any of them are. Seriously. I know their names, or at least I noted them down, but I couldn't tell you a single thing about Clover except she has a sister. That's it. Max, I can't tell you anything about Max. I just know his name. Abe, I just know his name. Nina, I just know her name. Megan, I just know her name. And that she's a psychic. That's the only little bit of okay, I guess that's a thing. It's okay. So, outside of, one thing, for one character, it's you didn't do any of the work. It's how do you expect this to turn out? You can nod to the video game as many times as you want, but if you don't draw in the audience to your characters, you're always going to fail. Point blank, period. And this is the perfect example of that. This is where there are so many clear nods to the video game, I can see them happening, but I'm but I don't care about the characters, so I don't care about the stakes, so I don't care what's happening in the movie. Even the nods. I'm whatever, the nods are pointless at this rate, right? So this is a 2 or 3 out of 10 easily. This is a disaster of a movie. It clearly needed a lot more time building up where we needed to be. And, really honing in on character. So, if you are a writer out there who's made it this far into this review, and I have stated this in a lot of other horror movies in particular, but, it's a good practice even outside of that, always focus on character writing. Character is so important. It should be the top thing when it comes to your story. It's what grounds your story, period. It's going to be your characters. People follow characters, generally speaking. Again, I can go all the way back to why I think Silent Hill is a good video game adaptation, or, a decent one at that, because though it's not perfectly adapted one-to-one to the video game, I could see and care about the main character in that movie. I can understand her desperation to find her daughter and make sure that she's safe and things of that nature. Simplistic stuff, sure, but effective nonetheless. But here, there's nothing to attach to. Even the whole sister thing, it didn't even feel like they were sisters, and the only way I knew that is from the beginning and from that flashback. I feel like, again, there should have been a little bit more to be like, yeah, they're clear, and as much as there is, should be much about the other characters as well, to help flesh them out. Again, especially for a horror movie, it should be about, you should be wanting your character, your audience to be like, I want your characters to survive. Despite being surprised that they all do survive, it's like, but I didn't care for them to do so. It doesn't mean anything. This movie still accomplished so little despite that. So yeah, very weak movie. And I hope that, we aren't because we were at peak video game movies with Sonic and all that. I hope we aren't going down trend at this moment. It very well may appear so, especially with some of the announcements like a Mario 2. It's like, and even Sonic 4, I do have my doubts about that one for particular reasons, but I'm gonna wait on a trailer to really kind of put together because the after credits thing on that movie was a little probably, and no, it's not because of Amy, it's actually because of the Metal Sonics. It's so what is that movie going to entail then, right? It's because they all get defeated, so it's who's going to be the villain of, Sonic 4? It can't be Metal Sonic, they all got defeated, right? So it's so what do you do? Again, you have to be careful when crafting an after-credit sequence. And this movie does insinuate that, we see the cameras in that area still recording something going on. So it's oh, we're trying to sell that idea of a second movie. So yeah, I don't think this is it. I can't account for the video game characters in accountants with this, but hey, here we are nonetheless. So that's my review of Until Dawn, the movie, and if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition about smaller YouTubers, second to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly, and third to my Discord server, you can join, collab, chill, do all that cool stuff for free, and until next time everyone, bye bye!